Asian Review, the Voice Asian channel. As you know, we bring the prominent Asian voices to the global literature forums. So today we are going to talk to a very talented author from the East Asian side. I'm going to read a little bit about her life, and I'm sure we will get to know a little bit more from her own voice a little later. So let me briefly introduce Saraswati M. Manickam, fondly known as Saras Manickam, and
SARAS MANICKAM.
for her great work, which got quite famous as My Mother Pattu. So she's a freelance writer, language and creative writing teacher. She published an award-winning book. I believe you were awarded the D.K. Duck Memorial Award as well as a Commonwealth Award. So welcome, Saras, to the Asian Review channel.
Right. I won prizes for short stories. So this book, you guys gave me the award, you know, the book of the month. So I'm really, really chuffed about that.
So first of all, I would like to ask you, for the benefit of our viewers, who are you as a person? We all know in Google, your name comes and, you know, they'll tell you a very technical details. Saras Manickam is, you know, this. But then I'm sure people would love to know who you are as a person. So would you be feeling comfortable to let us know a little bit about you?
I'm probably the most boring person I know. I mean, what do? You write, you run the family, you cook, you clean, you meet up with friends. It's kind of a boring life. And I was a teacher, and then I became a teacher trainer. So all the time I've been writing books, but I was writing school books and workbooks, and but I was always writing short stories on the side. And asked me to tell me about myself. Well, when I was in, some of my stories got published, and I thought I'm the greatest writer alive. It's so easy to get published. I'm so great, you know. And I had to learn that that was not true. I had to learn it the very hard way. When subsequently my stories got rejected and rejected and rejected, I had to then go back and learn the craft very humbly. That's what I am. And learning the craft is ongoing.
Well, let me disagree with you with the part that you said you're a very boring person. You're not, because you seems to be a very bubbly person, and your work, when you read it, you see that spirit in that. So with that, I'm going to talk to you about your book, the My Mother Pattu. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, My Mother Pattu, right.
Could you show us the book, the back, the front cover? So there you
I'm
go.
so proud of it. Yeah.
So now it's time to tell.
It's always the back. Yeah.
Now it's time to tell our viewers about what My Mother Pattu is. In your word, don't give them everything. They should read the book. So give them a little bit information about what the book is about, like a brief.
All right. Okay. This is a collection of 14 stories. The title story won the Commonwealth Short Story Prize for Asia in 2019. Many of the stories are set within a small imaginary town, fictional, totally fictitious town called Mambang. The only reason it's a fictitious town is because it's easier to put in whatever you want, you know. If it's a real town, you got to go check your facts, and you probably get them wrong. It's really about human relationships. It's about things that involve all of us, like racism, discrimination, patriarchy, feminism. Mainly, it's about how people deal with the challenges that life throws at them. And when I was writing each of the stories, I was very particular that I didn't want a whiny, writing to victimhood kind of thing. I wanted to write real, authentic stories about real people who are brave and strong, who refused to look away, who called it by its name and stood up to it and rose to the challenges. They didn't always succeed. They always had to pay the price, and most of them were women, but they never turned away. So I want to talk about courage and I want to talk about life as honestly as possible, without being sentimental, without pandering to victimhood. I think that was the main thing about it. I didn't want people to say, "Oh, you poor thing," you know. It's so unhelpful.
Right. That's an interesting thing, especially the part that you that created this
Yeah,
imagination. Uh, what makes
yeah,
about your motivation? Now, we have heard of stories where atheists find inspiration to write about religion, and we have heard of war victims, getting inspired to write about their own traumatic experience and how nice it will be to have a peaceful world. So, people find inspiration out of nowhere. And for my mother, Pattu, what was your
mhm.
inspiration? What made you write that? What was your inspiration behind this book?
Okay. Or there are 14 stories, so different stories, different inspirations. But on the whole, the main story, Patu, um, was largely based on the women I knew when I was growing up. Strong women, um, who dealt with the cards, who strong women, independent women, intelligent women, who because of patriarchy, because of this community, you know, the placing of women in society as a class, as a class below men, um, they could not grow, they could not do what they want, their potential was not realized. And I found that in many cases, there was so much rage, you know, in the women. And at first, and this rage turned not inwards, but towards the easiest victims. In Patu's case, it was her daughter, you know. Um, when I first started writing Patu, I was I was angry with this main character. Um, I wanted to punish her, and show her up as a monster, and it didn't work because that was not all her story. There was she was a complicated woman. There were so many facets to her. The abuser was also abused, and I wanted to show that the perpetrator can also be a victim. The victim can also be an abuser, not just in that one story, but in many of the other stories. Life is complicated. People are complicated. Patu was one of the most generous people in her community, but she was a terrible monster to her child. So, you know, complexities. I didn't want to make moral judgments. I wanted those judgments or those reflections to come from the reader. What I wanted was to just throw it up. I say, look, these are people with their emotions, with their own back histories. I'm telling you their story. How you make of it, what you make of it, and how you know, come to your conclusions is up to you. There was no authorial interference, as it were. I was not on a moral, you know, I was not taking the moral high ground. That's not my place as a writer.
I'm going to ask you more questions about Pattu's character, and what you just said about she being a monster, and this very complex emotions a little later.
Mm.
Before that, I have
Mhm.
asked you about a different thing. Now, since we strongly believe that stories
Right.
bring about our own life to the world, uh,
Mhm.
it would be very interesting to learn a bit more about your background. Now, there are two things I would like to know. First of all, you as a teacher, I believe, in particular, how did that part influence
Mhm.
your writing? That's my first question. When we talk about your background, you being a teacher, particularly, how did that influence your writing? And my second question on the background will be, can you share some information about your personal journey as a writer? How it came to this status. So could you run through us with that?
Uh, I think teaching was a source of a great deal of information and character building. I had one of my first earliest schools was an inner city slum school, and I had wonderful children. They still, and they're not children anymore, but they still write to me. We're still on Facebook. It's like, hi teacher, that kind of thing. And they taught me a lot. And I think they were the main ones who taught me never, never be presumptuous about people. No, don't make presumptions. Don't assume you know everything. And teachers know everything. It wasn't true. I had to learn, and my students taught me a great deal about human nature. My students' parents taught me about human nature, about life, about dealing with life, with challenges, with difficulties. And I learned about, I'm like comfortably middle class. They were not, and I caught glimpses into lives that were so vastly different from mine, and that taught me a lot. Never presume is the main thing, and I try never to presume where my stories are concerned. Does that answer your question?
It did, in fact. My before I'm going to the next question. Um, I'm going to read a bit from your uh, book. Um,
Okay.
all right. So here we go. I need to do a little bit of technical. Okay, you can still hear me, I suppose.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so here goes. There is a single framed black and white photograph of my parents in the cupboard in Grandma's room. It was taken after their marriage in 1950. A Chinese man and an Indian woman in Indian weddings. My father looked like a big player in a promotional shoot for some cheap movie where the budget did not run to hiring a real actor. Now, your language, it has a great sense of humor and very rich and very descriptive. Very unique to you is that your style.
um, it's a wry kind of humor under the just below the surface. Um, I don't know how I do it. It just comes. I'm not a very funny person, but this kind of humor, I just write like that. I don't know. But I'm so glad you caught it. Not many people catch it.
Oh, it's throughout. You can really see it. So I think I find, especially in the first the My Mother Pattu, I saw it like, in every dialogue, in how you it's a very subtle humor, but it's very strong at the same time.
Mm,
Something that you can, it gives you a lot of thought. So let's go to the next question now.
mm,
The complex racial mix of Malaysia is a place where the Indian,
mm,
the Malay cultures
mhm.
clash as well as coexist.
Yeah,
Example, if you look at some of your characters, in different stories, now you have Meena, Arun, Izan, Wong Seng Chai, Mohan,
yeah,
I think Manoharan, Raju, Abdullah, Farida,
yeah.
all kind of names from the Chinese to the Indian to Malay. So how did
Mm,
intricate
uh-huh.
diversity help you create stories? And that's my first question. Like this very complex racial.
Could you repeat that?
Yes. So
Uh,
very complex, intricate web of diversity. How did it help you to?
mm,
That's my first question. And the second question is the names that you have mentioned here, like, from Meena to Arun to all these names, do they represent
mm.
the people that you had some connection in your life? I mean, like portraying, it's very easy to portray someone we know in a different name. So, was there any relation between these names and people that you really came across in your life?
No, the second question is easy. They're all amalgamation of people I know, people I've heard about, people I read about in the papers. So it's all a mix. There's no one single person. But talking about the racial diversity, I grew up in a country like that. No, we were always running in and out of each other's homes um, as children. We would cycle to each other's homes during festivals. We would go to the neighbor's Chinese wedding and look at the pig, the huge roasted pig, suckling pig on the table, and look at it, wonder. We would we played together. We grew up together. That was the Malaysia that I knew. That many of the younger children uh, don't really know very much of. Things have changed. Yeah. And when many people read that bit about Patu, they said, "Yes, I know this place. I grew up in this. I had friends like this. I had neighbors like this. I had a teacher like this." So yeah, it touched. It struck a chord.
I get it. I mean, especially when you're when you grow up in a very diverse society, it gives you so
Yeah,
much. I think it spices up your cultural knowledge, and it gives more taste to your stories, I suppose. That all
yeah,
when you have to coexist in a very different culture. I mean, that I have seen in many books
yeah.
where authors come from such cultural background. I'm going to go back to that
Yes.
because you were talking about part two and you were
Yeah.
about a character. So I'm going to read out a little bit from her. Uh, I mean, her
Mm,
conversation or her thought. I was shocked at first that a mother would not automatically love her baby, but it was a secret relief for her for hear her words. I was free then to
mm,
hate part two without guilt. Now you talk about very strong
mhm.
here this relationship between a weary mother and a growing daughter. So how love, hatred, empathy are all embedded in the same person because, like you said, Patu is also
Mm,
she's a heroine when it comes to abusing men. She fights back. So at the same time, she's a monster with a daughter. So it's the complex emotions in the same person.
mm.
Um, so, as a writer, how important it is to bring about emotions, and how did you balance, like, because when you build characters, I believe that you want to make Patu a complete evil. You also gave her some merit, and I believe she's who she is for her because of her circumstances. And
Mhm.
it's sad for her daughter, of course, when you really feel it. The emotions are very true. I mean, you bring that language in such a way that the readers really feel the emotions. So, how important it was capturing these emotions, and how did you keep a balance in this? Because this is like cooking a meal without making it not too salty, not too sweet, but at the right temperature.
Um, that story took me the longest time to write. The person who started writing Patu uh, was very moralistic. This really wanted to punish this woman, and that's why it took me longest, because I was trying to manipulate the story, and I was trying to manipulate the characters. It never worked. I had to go through my own life. I had to love and suffer and go through loss and grief and failure, and those things softened me up and gave me a bit more compassion to look at other people with more empathy. So the person who started writing Patu was not the person who finally completed the story. I myself had undergone life, and I think I had become a softer, more gentler person in terms of empathy. And that's one part of the answer. The other part is really, really important, is that um, I believe really seriously that the writer is merely a channel, a conduit for the story. I I am a conduit for a story that needs to be told, where the characters wanted to tell their story their way. I just stay out of the way. The moment I start interfering and saying, hey, hey, I don't want you to say this, I want you to act like this, I want you to do this, the characters stop working, and they become stick figures, and they become boring and trite and boring. I don't do boring, the kind of thing. Then I realized, okay, I'm trying to throw in my own, I'm trying to push my way here. Then I step out and let them tell their story, which is why sometimes I think a story is done, I'm complete, and I leave it aside. And then I come back to it and find it's total rubbish, because it's not done. It is too much of the author's smugness in trying to show off and listen, I'm so clever. I've written a great story. And that's not the story at all. That's not the story of the characters. So very often my stories undergoes so many changes, the metamorphose to something else. Um, and because I have to keep on working at the craft of putting me away and standing and keeping out of the way and letting the characters tell their story, then it becomes authentic. It is not a matter of me showing off, which I do all the time. Then it doesn't work. Then I have to move away.
That's interesting explanation. That kind of made me ask you this. Now there is a generational gap between the characters. You have the grandmas, the daughters, and the granddaughters. Throughout these the web stories. Um, so, being a teacher, did it help you to understand the younger generation better and building, their dreams, how they think, and how they clash with their adults? So, did it help you?
Well, I used to be young, and so yeah, those are everyone's stories. Uh, our dreams and the way we think that adults don't understand us. So yeah, I drew from my own experience, the experience of all the young people I know who are forever fighting with their parents. But uh, the bottom line is that all the women in many of the stories, the women, despite their intelligence or ability, or despite the fact that they are loved or not loved, they lack agency. They lack agency to control their lives or to make choices for their own lives. Someone else makes the choices, you know. And I wanted to show uh, that the women really don't have much agency in their lives. And I think it's only when they start taking charge of their lives and making their own decisions that things start moving for them. But I do believe that they always pay a price for that.
Right. Saras, now you talk about racial prejudice, which is not uncommon,
Mhm.
and especially in the times that we live, we see that how
Uh-huh.
um, different races uh, that could coexist without any issue as neighbors or friends are being,
Mhm.
I would say, misguided, deceived by political means or different ends. So,
Mhm.
I mean, this racial prejudice, which is of course not uncommon. So, can you share the perspective on how these
Yeah.
themes in your stories? Because I'm sure you have to walk a fine line, um, not to antagonize anyone. At the same time, you need to bring
Mm.
reality into your characters or your stories. So, how did you address this in your stories?
All right. What I want to say is that nothing, not a single example in this story, in these book stories, not a single instance in these stories was from my imagination. They're all lived experiences. You know, every single episode here, they're all lived experiences. Not necessarily my experience, but lived experiences of other people. What I did was to document them. So yeah, what happened in school? Yeah, I know because I was a teacher. You know, so name calling, slurs in schools, I know that. Uh, Other things like police brutality or whatever, um, you just open a newspaper, and yeah, so I got a lot of information from newspaper, you know, reports about uh, whatever the police or people calling people or discrimination, uh, students not getting to university despite excellent uh, you know, results. Every single thing here is real. It has happened, and I'm just documenting it. So it's like authentic lived experiences in that sense. Yeah.
I think it helps, and you're right. It's all around us, and we don't need to do much research. Just turning a page of a
Mm.
newspaper or listening to radio, you will hear all this, and you will experience in restaurants, whatnot. So that's quite true, and I get it.
Yeah.
Uh, my
The only thing is, yeah, I did not want, sorry, I just didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want I didn't want the characters to whine, because that doesn't help anybody. You know, you don't want a situation where uh, people feel sorry for you. I think I wanted people to say, look, these things happen, but yeah, it's happening all the time. Let's deal with that. Let's go beyond that. Let's face the challenges. And if you have to pay a price, you pay a price, but you go on ahead. You know?
it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Next
Yeah.
question is a technical one. and at the same time,
Uh-huh.
I think just could you share some, uh, this multicultural aspect of the settings of your book? How
Mhm.
does it contribute to, the impact and the narrative? I mean, let me ask you again. How does the multicultural aspect of the setting of the book contribute to the stories, to the stories and the impact on the narrative?
People think that okay, it's set in Malaysia, and therefore these stories are actually very localized. There's a tendency to think that. And then this guy from the student from Brooklyn, he said, "My Mother Pattu," the main story, was featured in this college anthology called The Art and Craft of Asian Stories. So this guy from Brooklyn read it and said, "She's talking about my mom," you know. So I have many people telling me that's my mom, or that's my auntie, that's my grandma. Because despite the fact that the setting is pretty local to Malaysia, the themes, the characters, the experiences, I think they cut across regional boundaries and racial boundaries. I keep hearing that all the time. You spoke to me. You spoke to me. Your story spoke, because that's what I've experienced. Or my mom is like that. My grandma is like that. Or I know a person like that.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's correct. And I think you more or less answered my next question. But anyway, I'm going to ask you, and you can emphasize. So, what do you hope readers will take away from this cultural exploration? Because let's say for South Asians, for example, who are not very aware of
Mm-hmm.
uh, the core of the Malaysian society, they might think of Malaysia from Kuala Lumpur's point of view, the Petronas Towers, or in a very different mindset. But then what you
Mm-hmm.
is a very the real Malaysia. So for a reader, what will be the takeaways from this cultural exploration?
Um, a lot of discomfort actually. Like the stories about migrant workers, for example, and you know, those stories make readers pretty uncomfortable because every line is the truth. How we treat migrant workers, how we treat them as subspecies, um, not really human, treat them like slaves. And it's not the bad people alone who treat migrant workers that way. They're the decent people who treat them that way too, because you're so used to not thinking them as people deserving of rights, of space, of freedom, you know? So yeah, I think the takeaway is really a kind of like not just discomfort, but I hope a desire to not a desire where people are just kind of forced to reflect on their takeaways. Um, People, I have had readers who say I couldn't sleep because that story kept me awake. I know it kept too close to home, you know. And I know this, I know that. I've done this or something like that, and I never thought of it as that because everybody does it. I never thought of it as different. uh, just to give you an example, apart from us treating migrant workers badly, uh, this lady came up to me after reading some of the stories about racial discrimination, and she said, I got a scholarship to go to the UK, and I got a very generous scholarship, which meant that I could travel to Europe during the holidays. There's enough, ample money. And I never thought about the price that other people had to pay so that I could have this fantastic scholarship until I read your stories, like some of your stories. where people who deserved it never got scholarships or loans or grants to help them because they were of the wrong race. She said, I didn't think about it. She wasn't apologizing. She was just reflecting, oh yeah, right, that's right. I never thought about it. But at least there is an initial, something has begun to work in your mind. And I think if these stories initiate conversation, even within yourself, I think they're beginning to do their job, as it were. I don't know what their job is. I try not to interfere.
As far as I believe that authors give life to words, and those words
Uh-huh.
give movements. So, like you said, this particular person that who thought about this very generous scholarship. So it's all in a
Mm-hmm.
comes out as words. So this is how social movements and social awareness is being created.
Mm-hmm.
You have done your part in that sense to tell the truth in a very creative manner, and the society picks it. Although maybe you
Mm-hmm.
they pick it because they can see what the reality is when it is creatively told to them.
Yeah. But I can't take credit for it. It's the characters. The characters have told their own story. If I had insisted on interfering, it would have been all stick figures and horrible story.
So let's move to the next question now. Can you share some of your insights, into the challenges and rewards of writing stories, that deal with this very complex human experience? I mean, what were your challenges, and how did you try to challenge this social status that already existed or exist to telling this?
I don't think I can change anything. Um, I'm not a social activist. I'm a storyteller, and I tell stories as they are. And I try to be as authentic and unsentimental as possible. Because the moment you start bringing in sentimentality and a bit of this and that, the stories fail. Because then your authorial interference and your intention come to the fore. I'm a storyteller, and I want to tell you stories that uh, that are authentic and real and honest, that speak on their own terms. Um, it's about the stories. Try very hard to make it not about myself. You know, so it's not like I have a message. No.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, right? A book doesn't have to be like always bringing a message or showing the good wins. I mean, I don't think that is the purpose of a
Yeah.
or the purpose of a writer. They tell stories. So, but the thing is, the storytelling is so creative that things started to crop up in society. That's how naturally it occurs.
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask you something about.
I'm kind of very scared about that. No, I'm just very nervous about questions like that because it's like, did you intend to do this? And no, I'm a hopeless person. I just write the stories. Um, I'm not terribly moral or terribly good. I'm just a storyteller. I have a story to tell, which the characters want to tell. And so, yeah, that's it.
That's what I
It's
hope,
not me.
because it's not the moral duty of an author to, uh, just write the, the conclusion of good winning, or, give a moral judgment of a,
Mm.
but you can really creatively bring about uh, real life stories to people to understand and
Mhm.
So how did this winning the regional prize for Asia in 2019 for Commonwealth Short Stories? I think you won the in 2019. So how did this influence your career as an author? Because this is not just another prize; it's a globally recognized prize. So how
Yeah.
important was that? How did you feel, and how did it influence?
Okay. Yeah. Um, I'm kind of like very slow at doing things, you know. But when I won the prize, the regional prize, I thought, okay, I have to stop being a tinkerer of stories. I have to stop dithering, you know, and being like a dilettante, touching the stories here and there, failing hopelessly. I had to start honoring people who invested their time and effort in me, teaching me how to write, how to hone my craft. And the fact that I had won that regional prize um, was a testament to their efforts. All my creative coaches, I have I took up creative writing in Malaysia. Sharon Baka was my coach. Then I went to Prague for the Prague summer program for writers, and I spent many summers there. And they were so generous with their time. Uh, Two people, Stu Dieback and Richard Katrovas, and I learned so much from the masters, and who were generous with their knowledge, their time, and their experience. And I thought, okay, girl, it's time to pay back, and it's time to become serious about this craft of writing. So I needed to collect my stories and make them really, you know, whole and put them out there. That was how it started. Otherwise, I would have been writing, you know, stories and submitting them here and there and hoping to strike big. But I thought it was time to stop doing that and put them all in, you know, in one book, and to honor the people who invested their time and effort in me. It is like saying thank you.
You being grateful towards your teachers, and I'm sure as well as the readers.
Yes.
So we are coming to the latter part of our conversation. We have two more questions from to ask from SARAS Mannikkam. Before that, let me remind all of you, you could subscribe to our channel, and we bring voices of Asia to the literature voices of Asia to the global public, to connect the Asian voices with the global literature space. So today we are talking to a talented author from East Asia. Now the last two questions is particularly about your book. So Saras, where can your readers buy your book, My Mother Pattu, and also tell us about your publisher and where is it available if somebody wants to read it from
Okay.
other than Malaysia?
I'm not. I know it's available. Okay, Penguin, Southeast Asia, is my publisher. I wrote to them and said, I've got this story. Be interested? And they said, sorry,
Penguin Southeast Asia.
I can't hear you. I can. Yes, yes. Penguin, Southeast Asia. Yeah. And I know that all over the world you can get this book through Amazon, and it's also available as an ebook. And I think they're going to do an audio book as well. Um, you can get it in India. You can get it in Southeast Asia. Can you get it in Sri Lanka? I don't have to ask you, Danuka. Have you seen it in any bookshop?
Well, I will have to do a search on it because we got hold of you through. Of course, you are a personality here, but we made a purchase from a different source. So to answer that question, I really have lack of knowledge on that, but I'm sure Penguin books
Yeah.
are publicly available in most of the forums. But the good news is that if it is not available,
Yeah.
the Asian Review will make it happen, because when I read my
Yes, absolutely.
felt that it's a book that Sri Lankans should read, and it's a book that brings a lot of different human aspects to life. So it will be read in Sri Lanka, Saras. I can guarantee you that. So
Thank you. Thank you.
my last question is: you said you're a you're slow in doing things, but then is there any new project coming for your readers? Now you already have a readership, and you have got global attention, and people like your style of writing. So what do you have for them? Let's say I become a kind of a fan of yours. So what do you have for
Thank
us?
you. People say you have to write a novel. Nobody reads short stories. There's no money in it. And I think I only write short stories. So I fail dismally at novels, I think. I'm also half sloth. I take ages to write. So I'm writing stories. I'm writing stories. That's all I can say. That's all I can do. I can just write stories, and maybe they can make it a novel. Maybe they just remain short stories. But yeah, but I'm half sloth. It takes ages.
That's the final products should take time. So I'm sure there'll be a great storytelling very soon to come.
I just wanted to say that, yeah, I just wanted to say that Pattu has been really good to me. She has taken me on the literary festival circuit in Asia. I'm going to India next month for literary festivals there. I've been to Ubud, Australia, Singapore, Georgetown, and it's been a fabulous adventure, which I never thought would happen, and they would not have happened if not for her. I'm I'm kind of very grateful and deeply appreciative. So it's been a fabulous adventure.
And I think I would like to remind you that my mother Pattu will come to Sri Lanka at some point, and we will see Saras Manickam.
I hope so.
You wait. So
I hope so. I hope so.
about the short stories, although I have to tell that yes, it's different from a novel, but then writing a short story, you have to put everything that you write in a big novel into a small story. So I think it takes a more
Yeah.
time and more effort. Uh, if at all this word short stories could be changed for a marketing purpose, maybe people will start to write it, because when you try to invest on a short story, people might think whether it's worth it.
Yeah.
I'm just giving food for thought. If we can change the name from short stories to maybe alternative stories, there'll be a bigger market for it. I'm just
Ah.
giving my thought.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, so today we spoke to Saras Manickam on her wonderful book, MY Pattu. And it was such a pleasure talking to you, Saras, and we got to know a bit about you, more about your book and what inspired you. And if if somebody wants to read it, it's available on the sources Saras already mentioned. Is there any last message for our viewers?
I think I'm trying to sound very philosophical and clever, but I'm failing dismally. I just want to say thank you for reading. Thank you for reading. I'm so touched that people say I what you wrote connected with me. You know, I'm so touched. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for your time. And it was such a pleasure talking to you today. And I hope to have this conversation going. We will probably review one of your books, in this book soon. There is an interview, a written interview available on our site. And we will soon have this YouTube interview online as well as on other social media networks. So thank you for your time, and we wish you good luck from the Asian Review.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's our pleasure.